Goosebumps Piano Lessons Can Be Murder, Part 4, Chapter 14. The earthly cold shot through my entire body. Uttering a terrified cry, I jerked away and spun around to face her. Mom? I cried, my voice shrill and tiny. Sorry, my hands are so cold, she replied calmly, unaware of how badly she had scared me. It's freezing, sighed. Do you hear me calling you? No, I told her. My neck still tingled. I tried to rub the cold away. I was thinking about stuff and. Well, I don't mean to scare you, she said, leading the way across the small parking lot to the car. She stopped to pull the car keys from her bag. Did you and Dr. Free have a nice talk? Kind of, I said. This ghost war has me jumping out of my skin. I realized as I climbed into the car. Now I'm seeing the ghost everywhere. I have got to calm down, I told myself. I have just got to. I've got to stop thinking about the ghost is following me. But how? Friday after school, Mom drove me to Dr. Freak's music school. It was a cold, grey day. I stared at my breath streams up the bus into our window as we drove. It had snowed the day before, and the roads were still icy and slick. I hope we're not late, Mom fretted. We stopped for a light. She cleared the windshield in front of her with the back of her glove hand. I am afraid to drive any faster than this. While the cars were inching along, we drove past a bunch of kids building a snow fort in front of the yard. One little red-faced kid was crying because the others wouldn't let him join them. The school is practically the next town, Mom remarked, pumping the brakes as we slid towards an intersection. I wonder why Dr. Shriek has a school so far away from everything. I don't know, I answered dully. I was kind of nervous. Do you think Dr. Shriek will be my instructor, or do you think I'll have someone else? Mom shrugged her shoulder. She leaned forward over the steering wheel, struggling to see through the stream of windshields. Finally, we turned out to the street where the school was located. I stared out at the block of dark old houses. The houses gave me way towards the bare trees, tilting up under a wide blanket of snow. On the other side of the woods stood a brick building, half hidden behind tall hedges. This must be the school, Mom said, stopping the car in the middle of the street. I stared up at the old building. There is no sign or anything. Please don't leave block. Building for blocks. It's creepy looking, I said. Squinting through the windshield, she pulled the car into a narrow gravel driveway, nearly hidden by tall, snow-covered hedges. Are you sure this is it? I asked. I cleared a spot on the window with my hands and peered through it. The old building looked more like a prison than a school. It has rows of tiny windows through the ground floor, and the windows were all barred. Thick ivy covered the front of the building, making it appear even darker than it was. "I am pretty sure," Mom said, biting her lips. She lowered the window and stuck her head out, gazing at the enormous old house. The sound of piano music floated into the car, notes and scales and melodies all mixed together. "Yeah, we found it," Mom declared happily. "Go, Jerry, hurry, we're late. I'm going to go pick up something for dinner. I'll be back in an hour." I pushed open the car door, stepped onto the snowy driveway. My boots crunched loudly as I started to jog towards the building. The piano music grew louder. Scales and songs jumbled together into a deafening rumble of noise. A narrow walk led up to the front stoop. The walk hadn't been shown, and a layer of ice had formed under the snow. I slipped and nearly fell. As I approached the entrance, I stopped and gazed up. It looked more like a haunted house than a music school. I thought with a shiver. Why did I have such a heavy feeling of dread? Just nervous, I told myself, shrugging away my feeling. I turned the cold brass doorknob and pushed open the heavy door. It creaked open slowly, taking a deep breath. I stepped into the school. Chapter 15. A long, narrow hall stretched before me. The hall was surprisingly dark, coming in from the bright, white snow. It took my eyes a long time to adjust. The walls were dark tile. My boots thudded noisily in the hard floor. Piano notes echoed through the hall. The music seemed to burst out from all the directions. Where is Dr. Shriek's office? I wondered. I made my way down the hall. Lights grew dimmer. I turned into another long hallway and piano music grew louder. There were dark brown doors on both sides of this corridor. The door had small, round windows in them. As I continued walking, I glanced into the windows, could see smiling instructors in each room, their heads bobbing in rhythm in piano music. Searching for the office, I passed door after door. Each room had a student and an instructor. The piano sound became a roar, like an ocean of music crashing against the dark tile walls. Dr. Shriek really has a lot of students. I thought there must be 100 pianos playing at once. I turned another corner and then another. I suddenly realized I had completely lost my sense of direction. I had no idea where I was going. I couldn't find my way back to the front door if I wanted to. "Dr. Shriek, where are you?" I muttered to myself. My voice was drowned out by booming piano music that echoed off walls and low ceiling. I began to feel a little frightened. What if these dark halls twisted on forever? I imagined myself walking and walking for the rest of my life, unable to find my way, defending the pounding piano music. "Jerry, stop scaring yourself," I said aloud. Something caught my eye. I stopped walking and stared up at the ceiling. A small black camera was pushing above my head. It appeared to be a video camera, like the security camera you see in banks and stores. Was someone watching me on a TV screen somewhere? If they were, why didn't they come help me find the way to Dr. Shriek? I began to get angry. What kind of school was this? No science, no office, no one to greet people. As I turned another corner, I heard a strange thumping sound. At first I thought it was just another piano in one of the practice rooms. The thudding grew louder. closer. I stopped in the middle of the hall and listened. A high-pitched wind rose up over the thumping sound, louder and louder. The wall seemed to shake, and as I stared down the dark hall, an enormous monster turned the corner, its huge square body glowed in the dim light as if it were made of metal. Its rectangular head bobbled near the ceiling. Its feet crashed against the hard floor as it moved to attack me. Eyes on the sides of its head flashed an angry red. "No!" I cried, swallowing hard. It uttered its high-pitched whine in reply. Then it lowered its gleaming head as it prepared for battle. I spun away, determined to escape. To my shock, as I turned, I saw Dr. Shriek. He stood just a few yards from the hall, down the hall. Dr. Shriek was watching the enormous creature move in on me. I pleased grin over my face. I shouted with a loud grasp. Behind me, the creature was stomping closer, bustling at its angry whine. Ahead of me, Dr. Shriek, his blue eyes glowing with pleasure, blocked my escape. I cried out, preparing to be caught from behind with the silver monster, but it stopped. Silence! No crashing of its heavy metal feet, no troll whine. "Hello, Cherry," Dr. Shriek said calmly, still grinning. "What are you doing all the way back here?" Breathing hard, I pointed to the monster, which stood silently staring down at me. You are admiring our floor sweeper?" Dr. Shriek asked. "Your what?" I managed to choke out. "Our floor sweeper. It is rather special," Dr. Shriek said. He stepped past me and put a hand on the floor of the tiny thing. It's a machine?" I stammered. He laughed. "You don't think it was alive, did you?" I gasped at it. I was still too freaked out to speak. "Mr. Toddler, our janitor built this for us," Dr. Shriek said, rubbing his hands along the square metal front of it. "It works like a dream. Mr. Toddler can build anything. It's a genius. A true genius." "What? Does it have a face?" I asked, hanging back against the wall. "Why does it have eyes that light up?" "Just Mr. Toddler's sense of humor," Dr. Shriek replied, chuckling. "He put in those cameras too." He pointed to the video camera pushed on the ceiling. "Mr. Toddler is a mechanical genius. We couldn't do a thing without him. We really couldn't." I took a few steps forward and admired the floor sweeper from closer up. I couldn't find your office," I told him, Dr. Shriek. "I was wandering and wandering. I apologize," he said quickly. "Let us begin with our lesson. Come." I followed him as he led the way back in the direction I had come. He walked stiffly but rapidly. His white shirt was untucked in front of his big stomach. He swung his hands stiffly as he walked. I felt really stupid, imagining letting myself be terrified by a floor sweeper. He pushed open one of the brown doors with the round window, and I followed him into the room. I glanced quickly around. It was a small square room lit by 2 rows of fluorescent on ceiling. There were no windows. The only furniture was a small brown upright piano, a narrow piano bench, and a music friend. Dr. Shriek motioned for me to sit down on the piano bench, and we began our lesson. He stood behind me, placing my fingers carefully in all each key, even though I knew how to do it myself. We practiced different notes. I C's, T's, and we tried E's and F's. He showed me my first chord, and he had me do scales over and over. Excellent, he said near the end of the hour. Excellent work, Sherry. I am most pleased. His Santa Claus cheeks were bright pink beneath his wide mustache. I squeezed my hands together, trying to get rid of a cramp. Are you going to be my teacher? I asked. He nodded. Yes, I was instructed you in the basic, he replied. Then when your hands are ready, you will be given over to one of our fine teachers. But my hands are ready? What exactly did he mean by that? Let us try that short piece, he said, reaching over me to turn the page in the music book. Now, this piece has 1-3 notes, but you must pay attention to the quarter notes and the half notes. Do you remember how long to count to know a half note? I demonstrated on the piano, then I tried to play the short melody. I did pretty well, only a few clunkers. Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. Shriek declared, staring at my hands as I played. He glanced at his watch. I am afraid our time's up. See you next Friday, Shuri. Be sure to practice what I showed you. I thanked him and climbed to my feet. I was glad the lesson was over. Having to concentrate so hard was really tiring. Both my hands were sweating, and I still had a cramp in one. I headed to the door, then stopped. Which way do I have to go? I asked. How do I get to the front? The sheik was busy collecting the worksheets we had used, tucking them into the music book. Just keep going left, he said without looking up. You can't miss it. I said goodbye and stepped out into the dark hallway. My ears were immediately attacked by the roar of piano notes, and the other lessons over, I wondered how come they kept playing even though the hour is up. I glanced in both directions and made sure that there were no floor sweepers. Wait to attack. Then I left as Dr. Shriek had instructed it, and began to follow the hallway towards the front. As I passed door after door, I couldn't see smiling instructors in each room, their heads moving in rhythm with the piano music. Most of the students in these rooms were more advanced than me, I realized. They weren't practicing notes and scales, they were playing long, complicated pieces. I turned left. Then when the corridor came to an end, turned left one more time. It took me a while to realize that I was lost again. Had I missed a left turn somewhere? The dark halls with rows of brown doors on both sides all looked alike. I turned left again. My heart began to pound. Why wasn't anyone else in the hall? Then up ahead I saw double doors. The front exit must be theirs. Be those doors, I decided. I made my way eagerly to the double doors and started to push through them. Then powerful hands grabbed me from behind, and a gruff voice rasped in my ears. No, you don't. Huh? I uttered a startled cry. The hands pulled me back, then let go of my shoulder. The double doors swing along into place. I spun around to see a tall, wiry man with long, scraggly black hair and a stubborn black beard. He wore a yellow t-shirt and a denim overalls. No, not that way, he said softly. You're looking in for the front. It's up here. He pointed to the hall to the left. Oh, sorry, I said, breathing hard. You scared me. The man apologized. I take you to the front, he offered, scratching his stubborn cheeks. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mr. Toggle. Oh, hi, I said. I'm Jerry Hawkins. Dr. Shriek told me about you. I saw your floor sweeper. He smiled. His black eyes lit up dark like dark coals. It's a beauty, isn't it? I have a few other creations like it. Some even better. Dr. Sheik says you're a mechanical genius, I gushed. Mr. Toggle chuckled to himself. Yes, I programmed him to say that. He choked. We both laughed. Next time you come to school, I'll show you some of my other inventions. Mr. Toggle offered, adjusting his overall straps over his slender shoulders. Thanks, I replied. The front door was right up ahead. I was never so glad to see a door. I am sure I'll catch on to the layout of this place, I said. He didn't seem to hear me. Dr. Sheik tells me you have excellent helps, he said. A strange smile formed under his stubborn black beard. That's what we look for here, Jerry. That's what we look for. Feeling kind of awkward, I thanked him. I mean, what are you supposed to say when someone tells you what excellent hands you've got? I pushed open the heavy front door and saw Mom waiting in the car. Good night, I called and eagerly ran out of the school into the snowy evening. After dinner, Mom and Dad insisted that I show them what I had learned in my piano lesson. I really didn't want to. I had only learned that one simple song and I hadn't played it all the way through without goofing it up. But they forced me into the family room and pushed me into the piano bench. If I'm going to pay for the lessons, I want to hear what you're learning, Dad said. He sat down close to Mom on the couch, facing the back of the piano. We only tried one song, I said. Couldn't we wait until I learned more? Play it, Dad ordered. I sighed. I have a cramp in my hands. Come on, Jerry! Don't make excuses! Mom snapped impatiently. Just play the song, okay? Then we won't budge you any. Then we What did the school look like? Dad asked. Mom. It's way on the other side of town, isn't it? It's practically out of town, Mom told him. It's in this really old house, kind of run down looking. Actually, my daddy told me it's nice inside. No, I didn't, I interrupted. I said it was big. I didn't say it was nice. I got lost in the house twice. Dad laughed. I see you have your mother's sense of direction. Mom gave Dad a playful shove. Just play the piece, she said to me. I found it in the music book and dropped the book in front of me on the piano. Then I arranged my fingers on the key and prepared to play. But before I hit the first note, the piano erupted with a barrage of low notes. It sounds as if someone was pounding on the keys with both fists. Stop, Yuri! Stop it! Mom said sharply. That's too loud! That can't be what you learned, Dad added. I set my fingers in place and began to play, but my notes were drowned out by horrible banging again. It sounded like a kid pounding away on the keys as hard as he could. Yuri, give me a break! Mom shouted, holding her ears. But I'm not doing it! I screamed. It isn't me! They didn't believe me. Instead, they got angry. They accused me of never taking anything seriously and sent me up to my room. I was actually glad to get out of the family room and away from the haunted piano. I knew who was pounding the keys and making that racket. The ghost was doing it. Why? What was she trying to prove? What did she plan to do it to me? Those questions I couldn't answer yet. The next Friday afternoon, Mr. Toggle kept his promise. He greeted me at the door to the piano school after my mom dropped me off. He led me through the twisting halls to his enormous workshop. Mr. Toggler's workshop was the size of an auditorium. The vast room was cluttered with machines and electronic equipments. An enormous two-headed metal creature at least 3 times as tall as the floor sweeper that had terrified me the week before stood in the center. It was surrounded by tape machines, stack of electronic motors, case of tools and strange-looking parts, video equipments, pile of bicycle wheels, several piano frames with no inside, animal cages, and an old car with its seat removed. One ended wall seemed to be a control panel. It had more than a dozen video screens, all showing different classes going on in the school. On the screens were thousands of dials and knobs, blinking red and green lights, speakers and microphones. Beneath the control panel, on the counter that ran the length of the room, stood at least a dozen computers. All of them seemed to be powered up. Wow! I exclaimed. My eyes kept darting from one amazing thing to another. I don't know what to believe this. I don't believe this. Mr. Toggle chuckled. His eyes lit up. I find ways to keep busy, he said. He led me to an uncluttered corner of the enormous room. Let me show you some of my musical instruments. He walked to a row of tall grey metal cabinets along the far wall. He pulled a few items from a cabinet and came hurrying back. Do you know what this is, Joey? He kind of held up a shiny brass instrument attached to some kind of tank. A saxophone, I guessed. A very special saxophone, he said, grinning. See, it's attached to this tank of compressed air. That means you don't have to blow into it. You can concentrate on your fingering. Wow, I said, that's really neat. Here, put this on, Mr. Toggler urged. He slipped a brown leather cap over my head, the cap with several thin wires flowing out the back, and it was attached to a small keyboard. What is it? I asked, adjusting the cap over my ears. Blink your eyes, Mr. Toggler instructed. I blinked my eyes and the keyboard played a chord. I moved my eyes from right to left. It played another chord. I winked one eye. It played a note. It's completely eye-controlled, Mr. Toggle said with pride. No hands required. Wow, I repeated. I don't know what else to say. This stuff was amazing. Mr. Toggle glanced up at the row of clocks on the control panel. Oh, you're late for class, Jory. Dr. Freak will be waiting. Tell him it's my fault, okay? Okay, I said. Thanks for showing me everything. He laughed. I didn't show you everything. He choked. There is a lot more. He rubbed his stubbly beard, but you'll see it all in due time. I thanked him and hurried towards the door. It was nearly 4:15. I hoped Dr. Shriek wouldn't be angry that I was 15 minutes late. As I jogged across the enormous workroom, I nearly ran into a room of dark metal cabinets and shut and padlocks. Turning away from them, I suddenly heard a voice. Help! A weak cry. I stopped by the side of the cabinet and listened hard, and it again, a little voice, very faint. Help me, please. Chapter 19. Mr. Toggle, what's that? I cried. He had begun fiddling with the wires on the brown leather cap. He slowly looked up. What's what? That cry, I told him, pointing to the cabinet. I heard a voice. He frowned. It's just damaged equipment, he muttered, turning his attention to the wires. Huh? Damaged equipment? I wasn't sure I heard him correctly. Yeah, just some damaged equipment, he repeated impatiently. You'd better hurry, Jury. Dr. Shriek must be wondering where you are. I heard a second cry, a voice, weak and tiny. Help me, please. I hesitated. Mr. Toggle was staring at me impatiently. I had no choice. I turned and ran from the room, the weak cry still in my ears. On Saturday afternoon, I went outside to shovel snow off our driveway. It had snowed the night before, only an inch or two. Now it was one of those clear winter days with a bright blue sky overhead. It felt good to be out in the crispy air getting some exercise. Everything seemed so fresh and clean. I was finishing down at the bottom of the drive. My arms started to ache from all the shoving when I saw Kim Lee Chin. She was climbing out of her mother's black Honda carrying her violin case. I guess she was coming for a lesson from a lesson. I had seen her in school a few times, but I hadn't really talked to her since that day she ran away from me in the hall. Hey! I called across the street, leaning on the shovel, a little out of breath. Hi. She handed the violin case to her mother and waved back. Then she came jogging towards me, her black high top crunching over the snow. How's it going? She asked. Pretty snow, huh? I nodded. Yeah. Want to show some? It's having to do the walk. She laughed. No thanks. She had a high tickling laugh, like two glasses clinging together. You're coming from a violin lesson? I asked, still leaning on the shovel. Yeah, I am working on batch pieces. It's pretty hard. You're all ahead of me, I told her. I'm still doing most of these notes and scales. Her smile faded, her eyes grew thoughtfully. We talked a little while up at school. Then I asked if she would like to come in and have some hot chocolate or something. What about the walk? She asked, pointing. I thought you had to shove it. Dad would be disappointed if I don't save some of it for him, I joked. Mom filled two big white mugs with hot chocolate. Of course I burned my tongue on the first sip. Kim and I were sitting in the den. Kim sat on the piano bench and tapped some keys tightly. It has a really good tone, she said, her face growing serious. Better than my mother's piano. Why did you run away that afternoon? I blurted out. It had been on my mind ever since it happened. I had to know their answer. She lowered her eyes to the piano keys and pretended she hadn't heard me. So I asked again, why did you run away like that, Kim? I didn't, she replied finally, still avoiding my eyes. I was late for a lesson, that's all. I set my hot chocolate mug down on the coffee table and leaned against the arm of the couch. I told you I was going to take piano lessons at the street school, remember? Then you got the strange look on your face and you ran away. Kim sighed. She had the white hot chocolate mug in her lap. I saw that she was gripping it tightly in both hands. Jory, I really don't want to talk about this, she said softly. It's too scary. Scary? I asked. Don't you know the stories about the Shriek School? She asked. Chapter 20. I laughed. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the serious expression on Kim's face. Stories? What kind of stories? I really don't know what to tell you, she said. She took a long sip from the wine mug, then returned it to her lap. I just moved here, remember? I told her. So I haven't heard any stories. What are they about? Things happened up at the school, she muttered. She climbed off the piano bench and walked to the window, carrying the mug in one hand. What kind of things? I demanded. Come on, Kim, tell me. Well, things like there are monsters there, she replied, staring out the windows into my snowy backyard. Real monsters that live in the basement. Monsters? I laughed. Kim spun around. It's not funny, she snapped. I've seen the monsters, I told her, shaking my head. Her face filled with surprise. You what? I've seen the monsters, I repeated. They're floor sweepers. Huh? Her mouth dropped open. She nearly spilled hot chocolate down the front of her sweatshirt. Floor sweepers? Yeah, Mr. Toggler built them. He works at the school. He's some kind of mechanical genius. He builds all kinds of things. But she started. I saw one my first day at the school, I continued. I thought it was some kind of monster. It made this weird whining sound and it was coming right at me. I practically dropped my teeth. But it was one of Mr. Douglas' floor cleaners. Kim tilted her head, staring at me thoughtfully. Well, you know how stories get started, she said. I knew they probably weren't true. They probably don't have simple explanation like that. Or, I asked, there are more? Well, she hesitated. There were stories about how kids went in for lessons and never came out again. How they vanished, just disappeared. That's impossible, I said. Yeah, I guess, she said quickly, agreed. Then I remembered the tiny voice from the cabinet calling out for help. It had to be some invention of Mr. Toggle's, I told myself. It had to be damaged equipment, he said. He didn't seem the least bit excited or upset about it. It's funny how scary stories get started, Kim said, walking back to the piano bench. Well, the piano school building is creepy and old, I said. It looks like some kind of haunted mansion. I guess that's why some of the stories got started. Probably, she agreed. The school isn't haunted, but this piano is, I told her. I don't know what made me say it. I hadn't told anyone about the ghost and the piano. I knew no one would believe me. Kim gave a little start and stared at the piano. This piano is haunted. What do you mean? How do you know? Late at night, I hear someone playing it, I told her. A woman. I saw her once. Kim laughed. You're putting me on, right? I shook my head. No, I'm serious, Kim. I saw this woman late at night. She's playing the sad melody over and over again. Jerry, come on, Kim pleaded, rolling her eyes. The woman talked to me. Her skin fell off. It was so frightening, Kim. Her face disappeared. Her skull. It stared at me and she warned me to stay away. Stay away. I felt a shiver. Somehow I had shut that scary scene out of my mind for a few days, but now, as I told to Kim, it all came back to me. Kim had a big grin on her face. "You're a better storyteller than I am," she said. "Do you know a lot of ghost stories?" "It isn't a story," I cried. Suddenly, I was desperate for her to believe me. Kim started to reply, but my mom poked her head into the family room and interrupted. "Kim, your mom just called. She needs you to come home now." "Girls, I'd better go," Kim said, setting down the hot chocolate mug. I followed her out. We had just reached the family room doorway when the piano began to play a strange jumble of notes. "See?" I cried excitedly to Kim. "See? Now do you believe me?" Chapter 21. We both turned back to stare at the piano. Bonkers was struggling over the keys, her tall tail up behind her. Kim laughed. "Johnny, you're funny. I almost believed you." But, I sprinted. That stupid cat had made a fool of me again. "See you in school," Kim said. "I loved your ghost story." "Thanks," I said weakly. Then I hurried across the room to chase Bonkers off the piano. Late that night, I heard the piano playing again. I sat straight up in bed. The shadows on my ceiling seemed to be moving in time to the music. I had been sleeping lightly, restlessly. I must kick off my cover in my sleep because they were budging at the foot of the bed. Now, listening to the familiar slow melody, I was wide awake. This was not Bonkers stunting over the keys. This was the ghost. I stood up. The floorboard was ice cold. Outside the bedroom window, I could see the window pear trees shivering in a strong breeze. As I crept to the bedroom doorway, the music grew louder. Should I go down there? I asked myself. Will the ghost disappear the minute I poke my head into the family room? Do I really want to see her? I do not want to see that hideous grinning skull again. But I realized I couldn't just stand there in the doorway. I couldn't go back to bed. I couldn't ignore it. I had to go investigate. I was pulled downstairs as if tugged by an invisible rope. Maybe the time that Mom will hear her too, I thought, as I made my way along the hallway. Maybe they will see her too. Maybe they will finally believe me. Kim flashed into my mind as I started down the creaky stairs. She thought I was making up a ghost story. She thought I was trying to be funny. But there really was a ghost in my house. A ghost playing my piano. And I was the only one who knew it. Into the living room, across the wall carpet to the dining room. The music floated gently, so quickly, such ghostly music, I thought. I hesitated just short of the family room doorway. Would she vanish the instant I peeked in? Was she waiting for me? I took a deep breath. I took a step into the family room. Chapter 22. She had her head down, her long hair falling over her face. I couldn't see her eyes. The piano music seemed to be swirled around me, pulling me closer despite my fear. My legs were trembling, but I took a step closer than another. She was all grey, shades of grey against the blackness of the night sky. Through the window, her head bobbed and swayed in rhythm with the music. The sleeves of her blouse blowed as her arms moved over the keys. I couldn't see her eyes, I couldn't see her face. Her long hair covered her, as if hiding her behind a curtain. The music soared, so sad, so incredibly sad. I took a step closer. I suddenly realized I had forgotten to breathe. I let my breathe out in a loud whoosh. She stopped playing. Maybe the sound of my breathing alerted her that I was there. She raised her head. I could see her pale eyes peering out at me through her hair. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't make a sound. The stories are true, she whispered as a cry that seemed to come from far away. I wasn't sure I heard her correctly. I tried to say something, but my voice caught in my throat. No sound came out at all. The stories are true. Her voice was only one air of a hiss of air. I goggled at her. What stories? I finally managed to choke out. The stories about the school, she answered, her hair falling over her face. Then she started to raise her arms off the piano keys. They are true, she moaned. The stories are true. She held her arms up to me, gaping at them in horror. I cried out, then started to gag. Her arms ended in stub. She had no hands. Chapter 23. The next thing I knew, my mom was wrapping her arms around me. Jory, calm down, Jory, it's okay, she kept repeating. Huh? Mom? I was grasping for breath. My chest was heavy up and down, my legs were all wobbly. Mom? Where? How? I looked up to see my dad standing a few feet away, squinting at me through his glasses, his arms crossed in front of his bathrobe. Jory, you were screaming loud enough to wake the entire town. I stared at him in disbelief. I hadn't even realized I was screaming. It's okay now, Mom said soothingly. It's okay, Jory. You were okay now. I am okay. Again, I pictured the ghost woman all in grey, her hair falling down, forming a curtain over her face. Again, I saw her raise her arms to show me. Again, I saw the horrible stump where her hands should have been. And again, I heard her dry whisper, the stories are true. Why wouldn't she have any hands? Why? How did she play the piano without hands? Why was she haunting my piano? Why did she want to terrify me? The question circled my brain so fast I wanted to scream and scream and scream, but I was all screamed out. Your mom and I were both sound asleep. You scared us to death, Dad said. I never heard wails like that. I didn't remember screaming. I didn't remember that ghost disappearing or Mom and Dad rushing in. I was too horrified. I guess my mind just shut off. I'll make you some hot chocolate, Mom said, still holding me tight. Try to stop trembling. I am trying, I stammered. Guess it was another nightmare, I heard Dad tell Mom. Must have been a vivid one. It wasn't a nightmare, I shrieked. Sorry, Dad said quickly. He didn't want to get me startled again. But it was too late. Before I even realized it was happening, I started to scream. I didn't know to play the piano. Get it out of here. Get it out. Jerry, please, Mom pleaded, her face tightened with alarm, but I couldn't stop. I don't want to play. I don't want lessons. I won't go to the piano school. I won't. I won't. Okay. Dad said, shouting to be heard over my despaired wails. Okay, Jory, no one is going to force you. Huh? I gazed from one parent to the other, trying to see if they were serious. If you don't want a piano lesson, you don't have to take them, Mom said, keeping her voice in a slow, soothing tone. You already signed up for one more anyway. Yeah, Dad quickly joined in. When you go to the school on Friday, just tell Dr. Shri that it's your last lesson. But I don't want, I stuttered. Mom put a gentle hand over my mouth. You have to tell Dr. Shri, Jory. You can't just quit. Tell him on Friday, Dad urged. You don't have to play the piano if you don't want to, really. Mom's eyes reached mine. Do that make you feel better, Jerry? I glanced at the piano, now silent, shimmering, towering in the dim light from overhead. Yeah, I guess, I muttered uncertainly. I guess it does. Friday afternoon school, a grey blister dark with dark snow clouds hovering low overhead. Mom drove me to the piano school. She pulled me into the long driveway between the tall hedges and in front of the entrance to the dark old building. I hesitated. Could I just run in and tell the shriek that I quit? Then run right back out. Mom glanced at the clock on the dashboard. Take one more lesson, Jerry. It won't hurt. We've already paid for it. I said unhappily. Will you come in with me? Or can you wait out here for me? Mom frowned. Jerry, I got 3 stops to make. I'll be back in an hour, I promise. I reluctantly pushed open the car door. Bye, Mom. Dr. Shriek asked why you're quitting. Just tell him it was interfering with your schoolwork. Okay, see you in an hour. I said. I slammed the car door, then watched as she drove away, the tires crunching over the gravel drive. I turned and trudged into the school building. My sneakers stuttered aloud as I made my way through the dark halls to Dr. Shriek's room. I maybe looked for Mr. Toggle, but didn't see him. Maybe he was in his enormous workshop, inventing more amazing things. The unusual roar of noise thundered from the practice room as I passed by them. Through the small round doors I could see smiling instructors, their hands waving, keeping the beat, their hands swaying to the students playing. As I turned a corner and headed down a dark corridor, a strange thought popped into my head. I suddenly realized that I had never seen another student in the halls. I had seen instructors through windows of the room, and I had heard the noise of the students playing, but I had never seen another student, not one. I did have not to think about it. Smiling Dr. Shri greeted me outside to our practice room. How are you today, Jory? Okay, I replied, following him into the room. He wore baggy grey pounds held up with bright red suspenders over a rumpled white shirt. His white hair looked as if it hadn't been brushed in a few days. He motioned for me to take my place on the piano bench. I sat down quickly, folding my hands intensely in my lap. I want to get my speech over with quickly before we begin the lesson. Dr. Shriek. He walked stiffly across the small room until he was standing right in front of me. Yes, my boy. He beamed down at me, his Santa Claus cheek bright pink. Well, this will be my last lesson. I choked out. I have decided have to quit. His smile vanished. He grabbed my wrist. Oh no, he said, lowering his voice to a growl. No, you're not leaving, Jory. Huh? I cried. He tightened his grip on my wrist. He was really hurting me. Quitting, he exclaimed. Not with those helms. His face twisted into an ugly snarl. You can't quit, Jory. I need those beautiful helms. Chapter 24. Let go! I screamed. He ignored me and tightly to his grip. His eyes narrowed menacingly. Such excellent helms, he muttered. Excellent. No! With a shrill cry, I jerked my wrist free. I leaped up from the piano bench and began running to the door. Come back, Jory! Dr. Shriek called angrily. You cannot go away! He started away me, moving stiffly but steadily. Taking long strides, I pushed open the door and darted out into the hall. The banging of piano music reached my ears. The long dark hall was empty as always. Come back, Jory! Dr. Shriek called from right behind me. No! I cried out again. I hesitated, trying to decide which way to go, which way led to the front. Then I lowered my head and started to run. My sneakers thudded over the hard floor. I ran as fast as I could, faster than I'd ever run in my life. The practice room rolled past in a dark blur. But to my surprise, Dr. Shriek kept right behind me. Come back, Jory! He called, not even sounding out of breath. Come back! You cannot get away from me! Glancing back, I saw that he was gaining on me. I couldn't feel the panic race to my throat, choking off my air. My legs ached. My heart pounded so hard it felt as if my chest were about to burst. I turned the corner and ran down another long hall. Where was I? Was I heading the front door? I couldn't tell. This dark hallway looked like the other. Maybe Dr. Shriek's right. Maybe I cannot get away, I thought, feeling the blood throbbing at my temples. As I tried another turn, I searched for Mr. Toggle. Perhaps he could save me, but the hall was empty. Piano music pounded over every room, but no one was out in the hall. Come back, Jory! There's no use running! Mr. Toggle! I screamed, my voice hoarse and breathless. Mr. Toggle, help me, please! I turned another corner, the sneakers sliding on the smooth, polished floor. I was gasping for breath now, my chest heaving. I was double-toes up ahead. Did they lead to the front? I could remember with the low one I struck on both hands and pushed open the doors. No! I heard Dr. Shriek shout behind me. No! Jory, don't go into the settled hall. Too late. I pushed through the door and bolted inside. Still running, I found myself in an enormously bright lit room. I took a few steps, then stopped in horror. The piano music was deafening, like a never-ending roar of thunder. At first the room was a blur, then it slowly began to come into focus. So rows after rows of black pianos. Beside each piano stood a smiling instructor. The instructor all looked alike. They all were wobbling their hands in time to the music. The music was being played by It was being played by... I gasped, staring from room to room. The music was played by Hans. Hands floating over the keyboards. No people attached, just Hans. Chapter 25. My eyes darted down the row of piano. A pair of hands floated above each piano. The instructors were all bald-headed men in grey suits, with smiles plastered on their face. Their heads bubbled and swayed. The grey eyes opened and closed as the hands played over the keyboards. Hands, just hands, as I gasped, paralyzed, trying to make sense of what I saw. Dr. Shriek burned into the room from behind me. He made a running drive at my legs, trying to tackle me. Somehow I dodged away his outstretched hands. He groaned and hit the floor on his stomach. I watched him slide across the smooth floor, his face red with anger. Then I spun around, away from the dozen of hands, away from banging piano, and stared back towards the doors. Dr. Shriek was faster than I imagined. To my surprise, he was on his feet in a second, moving quickly to block my escape. I skated to a stop. I tried to turn away to get away from him, but I lost my balance and fell. The piano swirled around me. I looked up to see the row of hands pointing away on the keys, but the frightened gasped his chuckles to my feet. Too late. Dr. Shriek was closing in on me, a gleeful smile on a stumped face on his red, round face. Chapter 26. No, I cried, and I tried to climb to my feet, but Dr. Shriek bent over me, grabbed my left ankle, and held on. You can't get away, Cherry, he said calmly, not even out of breath. Let me go, let me go. I tried to twist out of his grip, but he was surprisingly strong. I couldn't free myself. Help me, somebody, help me! I cried, screaming over the roar of pianos. I need your hands, Jerry, Dr. Shriek said. Such beautiful hands. You can't, I shrieked. The double doors busted open. Mr. Toggles ran in, his expression confused. His eyes darted quickly around the enormous room. Mr. Toggles, I cried happily. Mr. Toggles, help me! He's crazy, help me! Mr. Toggles' mouth dropped open in surprise. Don't worry, Cherry, he called. Help me, hurry! I screamed. Don't worry, he repeated. Cherry, you can't get away. Dr. Shriek cried, holding me down on the floor. Struggling to free myself, I watched Mr. Toggles run to far wall. He pulled away a grey metal door, revealing some kind of control panel. Don't worry, he called to me. I saw him put the switch on. Control panel instantly. Dr. Shriek's hand loosened. I pulled my leg freely and scrambled to my feet, panting hard. Dr. Shriek slumped into a heap. His hands dropped lifelessly to his sides. His eyes closed, his head sunk, his chin lowering to his chest. He didn't move. He's some kind of robot? I thought to my amazement. Are you okay, Cherry? Mr. Toggles had hurried to my side. I realized my entire body was trembling. The piano music roared inside my head. The room began to spin. I held my hands over my ears, trying to shut over the pounding noise. Make them stop! Tell them to stop! I cried. Mr. Toggles jogged back to the control panel and threw another switch. The music stopped. The hands froze in place over the keyboards. The instructors stopped throbbing their heads. Robots? All robots? I muttered, still shaking. Mr. Toggles hurried back, his dark eyes studying me. You're okay? Dr. Shriek, he's a robot? I uttered in a trembling whisper. If only I could get my knees to stop shaking. Yes, he's my best creation, Mr. Toggles declared, smiling. He placed a hand on Dr. Shriek's still shoulder. He was really lifelike, isn't he? They're, they are all robots? I whispered my motion to the instructors frozen behind the pianos. Mr. Toggles nodded. Primitive ones, he said, still leaning on Dr. Shriek. They're not as advanced as my buddy, Dr. Shriek here. You made them all? I asked. Mr. Toggle nodded, smiling. Every one of them. I couldn't stop shaking. I was startled to feel really sick. Thanks for stopping him. I guess Dr. Shriek was out of control or something. I've got to go now, I said weakly. I started walking towards the door, forcing my temples, knees to cooperate. Not just yet, Mr. Douglas said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. Huh? I turned to face him. You can't just leave yet, he said, his smile fading. I need your hands, see? What? He pointed to the piano against the wall. A grey-suited instructor stood lifelessly behind it, a smile froze on his face. There were no hands suspended over the keyboard. That will be your piano, Jury, Mr. Toggle said. Chapter 27. I started to backing towards the double toe, one step at a time. Why? I stammered. Why do you need my hands? Humans' hands are too hard to build, too complicated, too many parts, Mr. Toggle replied. He stretched his black stubby beard with one hand as he moved towards me, but I startled, taking another step back. I can't make the hands play beautifully, Mr. Toggle explained. His eyes locked on mine. I've designed computer programs to make them play more beautifully than any live humans can play, but I can't blow hands. The students brought separate the hands. But why? I demanded. Why are you doing this? To make beautiful music naturally, Mr. Douglas replied, taking another step. I love beautiful music, Jory, and music is so much more beautiful, so much perfect when humans mistake twist get in the way. He took another step towards me, then another. You understand, don't you? His eyes burned in mine. No, I screamed. No, I don't understand. You cannot have my hands. You can't. I took another step back. My leg was still trembling. If I just get through those doors, I thought maybe I have a chance. Maybe I can outrun him. Maybe I can get out of this crazy building. It was my only hope. Gathering my strength, I ignored the pounding of my heart. I darted towards the doors. Oh, I cried out as Goosebumps appeared in front of me. The woman friend to my door, my house. From my piano, she rose up in grey except for her eyes. Her eyes glowed red as fire. Her mouth was twisted in ugly snarl of rage. She floated towards me, blocking my path to the door. I am trapped, I realized, trapped between Mr. Toggle and the ghost. There's no escape now. Chapter 28. I want you, the ghost woman wailed, her red eyes glowing with fury. I want you. No, please, I managed to cry in a choked voice. I raised my hands in front of me, trying to shed myself from her. Please let me go. To my surprise, she floated right past me. She was glaring at Mr. Toggles. I realized he charged back, his face tightened with terror. The ghost woman raised her hands. Awaken, she wailed. Awaken. As she waved her arms, I saw fluttering at the pianos. The fluttering became a mist, Wisped a grey cloud across up from each piano. I backed up to the doors, my eyes wide with disbelief. At each piano the darkness took shape. They were ghosts, realized ghosts of girls, boys, men, and women. I watched frozen in horror as they rose up and cleaned their hands. They moved their fingers, testing their hands, and then, with arms outstretched, their hands fluttering in front of them, the ghost floated away from the piano, moving on ropes in a single file towards Mr. Toggle. No, get away, get away, Mr. Toggle shrieked. He turned and tried to flee through the doors, but I blocked his path, and the ghost swarmed over him. Their poor hands pulled him down, their hands pressed him to the floor. He struggled, kicked, and struggled and screamed, "Let me up! Get off me! Get off!" But the hands, dozens and dozens of hands, flattened over him, held him down, pushed him face down on the floor. The ghost woman turned to me. "I tried to warn you," she called over Mr. Toggle's frantic scream. "I tried to scare you away. I lived in your house. I was a victim of the school. I tried to frighten you from becoming a victim too." She run, she ordered. "Hurry, call for help." But I was frozen in one place, too shocked by what I was seeing to move. As I started in disbelief, the ghostly hands swung around Mr. Toggles and lifted him off the floor. He squirmed and hold. He couldn't free himself from the powerful gasp. They carried him to the door and then out. I followed to the door to watch. Mr. Toggles appeared to be floating into the deep woods beside the school. The hands carried him away. He displayed tangled trees. I knew he'd never be seen again. I spun around to thank the ghost woman for trying to warn me, but she was gone too. I was all alone now. The house stretched behind me in eerie, silent, ghostly silence. The piano music had ended forever. A few weeks later, my life had pretty much turned to normal. Dad put an ad in the newspaper and sold the piano right away to a family across town. It left a space in the family room, so Mom and Dad got a big screen TV. I never saw the ghost woman again. Maybe she moved away. Good. Out with the piano. I don't know. I make some good friends and I was starting to get used to my new school. I was thinking seriously of trying out for the basketball team. I'm not a good hitter, but I'm good in the field. Everyone says I have great hands.
I'll be the last one left when the lights go out. I'm down to one last breath.